Welcome everybody. We're glad you could make it. And yesterday was a little windy, just like today. The sun was shining, but we're thankful for any moisture that it did blow in. And we're going to get started here with some introductions. So with that, just a photo of the team here that works hard and gets it done, whether that's calving cows, developing bulls, taking in feeder cattle, shipping fats, rain or shine, Gabriel and the whole host of guys here. And a lot of them are here at the table with us today. We appreciate what they do and all the hard work and the way things look out there are because of them. The other location we have is up by McLaughlin, South Dakota. We call it the Depot Feedlot. Lucas Sutherland was able to join us today. He'll be part of the presentation as well, and that is the team up there. And then there's the rest of us that call primarily Morris home, and some of us are road warriors, others are chained to desks, just depends. But I was going to take a little time to go through this group, starting on the left there in the front, Robin Metzger. Robin spends a lot of her time with our programs and program compliance, both at the ranch level and the feed yards, along with everything that is going to the packers as well. Next, Tammy Mickelson. Tammy spends a lot of her time on our cattle projections, inventory, and contract tracking, along with a lot of our genetic data and works closely with the Limousine Association, et cetera, and turning in all of our registrations. Sam Jensen in the front center. Sam Kramer, I'm sorry, I forgot that. Samantha works closely with our accounting team in the office in Morris. Is tell people if Samantha's calling you, answer the phone. She's trying to send you money. And Lauren Blau. Lauren works with our breeding to feeding program and works closely with our dairies and capturing a lot of the production data there that we're feeding back through our system. In the back, myself, and Mike Wulf. Mike runs our stocker program and spends a lot of time out in western South Dakota. Casey Banta is our seed stock manager, and then Bob Metzger and Jerry spend a lot of time with several of you all, helping buy feeder cattle and various projects as well. So that's the team, and like I said, we're excited to have you here. And with that, we're going to get started on our presentation, and I believe first up will be Robin, and I'll let her take it from there.
All right, I'm going to start off with the cattle coming to us. We're going to go through the whole cycle of when they come to us to harvest and data and genetics. So I'm going to start with at the ranch prior to delivery. We require that the cattle are verified natural or verified natural gap and NHTC verified prior to shipping, so that you'll need a third-party verification. Getting that third-party verification done timely, having the non-conformances taken care of with your third-party verifier, as well as the EIDs in their ears prior to setting up a delivery time, prior to delivering. That is very helpful. And if you have any problems or if there's any complications between you and the third-party verifier or whatever, just let us know. We can kind of help you work through some of the, we've seen a lot of different scenarios over the years, and we can kind of help you work through some of those issues that arrive. But we will be double checking prior to taking delivery. We double check all of the cattle coming in, just making sure that they're verified under the program that they're claimed to be, and we don't take delivery until they are certified. A few of the things that have caused some problems here recently is the 100% veg fed claim that is now part of all of our natural cattle. You can be verified natural and not have a 100% veg fed claim, but where we send our cattle, they need to be 100% veg fed. And so in that, basically, whey is the product that causes the most problem in the supplements. That if they are fed whey, they do not qualify for 100% veg fed. So double checking your any of your feedstuffs that you have if you're starting a new feedstuff, and even just going back and looking at what you've done over the years, double checking it's always good, and sending it to your third-party verifier just to double check that, hey, does this qualify prior to feeding it is a great thing to do. There's also feed companies out there that sell natural feed, and they'll say it's natural, but their definition is sometimes different, and so just double check it. Even if they say it is, sometimes it could have, I don't know, there's just a number of products that it can have, but really what we run into a lot of times is whey, feather meal, things like that. So double check those. And then any affidavits that if the person procuring your cattle have given you, signing those at the time of delivery really helps us further down the line. So really some helpful practices is having your program paperwork organized. You'll get a checklist prior to delivery from a team member, going through that checklist, making sure that you've taken care of everything on there. And if you have any questions, contact us. I get a lot of stuff emailed or texted to me prior to delivery just saying, hey, did we fill this out correctly? That honestly, we're fine with that. We'd rather have that ahead of time so that we can help you fill that out, or I can help you walk you through it. But a lot of the things are making sure everything's signed. There's a lot of paperwork, we know that. But just making sure that the certificates are signed, it's for the proper year, that you have a ship card for GAP cattle on each truck with the head count on that truck. So just double checking that paperwork, making sure you have everything, and then making sure it's signed. I went over the feedstuffs, new feedstuffs, just have those double checked. And then the other thing is really, we like to have if you're selling us verified natural GAP cattle, having the treated cattle separate on the trucks at the time of delivery so that they're in their own group, they're separate, along with a list of the treated cattle by EID. Because when we process the cattle, we don't look them up in the IMI website to see what they qualify for until after we scan them all in. Then we have the list and we can go look them up. But then once we scan them all in, we'll look up those EIDs and make sure that they match that list that we're getting along with the cattle. And so you may not have, sometimes people leave off one of the animals that was on the treat list, and then you got guys looking for them. So it's a lot easier to go through the EIDs after they're all scanned in. So that cattle treated, or the treated cattle separate on the truck, along with making sure that trucker knows he has those treated cattle, so that when they do take delivery on, they don't get mixed. Once they come to the feed yard, that's also vital. And then the list. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll pass this back to me.
So Robin is the one that keeps us from having too many bad days, and we've certainly had them before, such as I think it was 1 year, quite some time ago, where we found out after the fact that like 3,000 head of cattle received a decox pellet with 0.05% pork fat in it as a binding agent. And, so not so good days like that. So everything that we can do in advance and in front to try and eliminate or minimize those mistakes. I did miss a couple things I wanted to cover quickly. So right up here in the front corner, we do have a few more introductions. So Arwin Mickelson, Bob Shear, and Craig Luttrell, who we work with closely at Tyson. And then raise your hand, guys. Everyone can see you if you'd like to meet them or talk to them afterwards. And then also we've got several of the vets and nutritionists we work with from Feedlot Health around as well. Some of you have met them prior years, but there's several of them here as well. So just another introduction if you wanted to mingle afterwards. I'm going to cover a little bit on the procurement side. So there's, I mean, if you're wondering why we send your cattle to one location 1 year and a different location the next year and what's really going on, basically the cattle are broke down into these four we call them classifications, and we use these to build our projections and inventories. So for example, right now we're trying to build rough estimates for the next 12 months to meet our packer contracts. And we're doing that by placing cattle into these certain classifications, and then the next slide will show how those land on the marketing schedule. But roughly, the calf beds, the backgrounded calves, and the grass yearlings, we receive all those cattle, which is about 75% of the cattle in about 25% of the year. So we take in 75% of our inventory and 25% of our year, and then the other 25% of our inventory comes in this time of year, kind of January through May, at a much slower pace. So we warehouse a lot of cattle in the fall. The grass yearlings, they take precedence in the feed yard in August and September. On the next slide here, you can see, we'll just start with the calf beds coming in late September, early October. Those are the cattle we're building. They go on full feed, and we target June through September for our marketing. And what we're doing here is we're trying to build so we can send, whether it's 500, 700, or 800 a week to Tyson or to the packer on a very consistent basis. That's one of the things that we really focus on to build that 52-week supply for these program cattle. If your cattle are, say under 550 pounds or deliver later in the fall, a lot of those cattle we make what we call a backgrounded calf. We wean them out on cornfields, stocker ranches, just kind of rough them along through the winter. And then about this time of year, we go in there and we sort those cattle. The heavy cattle come into the feed yard. They act and look a lot like a backgrounded yearling, which is down here. And that heavy end, along with 7 and 8 weight cattle we're buying from some of you guys this time of year, fill our kind of Q4 marketing window. The light cattle that we bought in the fall, and they get ran on grass the second season, come off grass, and they look a lot like these grass yearlings. They fill our January to May marketing window. So as we're procuring cattle, if your cattle are kind of in between a marketing or a weight break, say 575, one year we may need them as calf beds, and the next year, if it's dry and they're a little lighter, we may send them to a ranch. That's just kind of an explanation of what we're doing with the cattle, trying to build that consistent supply where we can send the same number of cattle every week to the packer. So with that, I'm going to have Lucas come up here and he'll talk more about what we do with the cattle when we get them in our possession.
Thanks, Nate. As Nate said, Lucas Sutherland. I'm up at the depot in McLaughlin, South Dakota. So we're going to look at kind of the next step here as far as delivery and then in the feed yard. So a few things when you're thinking about delivery. We look at preconditioning. We'd like to see preconditioning done 4 to 6 weeks prior to delivery. And then we're not brand specific on vaccines, but we'd really like to see a modified live 5-way with a Pastorella and then a 7-way with Hemophilus even prior to receiving. That allows us at the feed yard to be able to, when we vaccinate them upon arrival, then that's a booster for them and try to set the calves up for success. While you're doing preconditioning, when we talk about EID placement, and this has been sitting on the back, and we'll put it back there. One thing that is very helpful for us is making sure that the animal that is on your ranch, and you put the EID in, that that EID stays placed. And on this ear, you can see we have it up top here, and the bigger portion of it with the numbers on, inside the ear. That actually really protects it. Stops them from getting it hooked on wires or the truck or wind brakes, speed bump cables, whatever it may be. But we've had the best retention success with that. And then that allows us to put our feedlot tag in there in the center kind of where you normally put your tag, like in your cows or whatever. Anytime handling cattle, if there's any low stress handling practices that can be adapted on the ranch, or if you're redesigning corrals, we've seen pretty good success rate with that. Just ease of handling cattle and performance and health data on individuals. Once preconditioning is done, we'd like a kind of a heads up prior to delivery, maybe 3 weeks or so. Contact whoever is your buyer or the contact for you, and then we can kind of schedule out deliveries. If you're a ranch that has 1,000 head or 500 head, they don't all have to come the same day for us. If logistically on your ranch, that's what works for you, we can make it work, but we've actually worked with a few different ranchers as to date, and we're able to take a pasture that had 200 animals and bring those into the feed yard one day and then maybe another 200 the next day, spread it out so that it allows some low stress handling, but it also allows us in the feed yard to be able to make sure the animals come in, get processed within the first 24 to 36 hours in the feed yard, and then they get to a home pen and they stay put and they can rest and settle into their new home. As Robin talked about paperwork, anytime you have questions upon delivery, even if it's the day of, anything you got, feel free to ask, or you can send it ahead of time. If you know the feed yard you're coming to, each feed yard has people that know what we're looking for in the paperwork, and just to make sure that we have dates, times, head counts, all of that filled out. And then at the feed yard, everything gets weighed coming into the feed yard on a certified scale. Sometimes that is pay weight. Other times we are just checking like what they're weighing when we get to the feed yard. Those get scanned in and sent over to the office so that we can get you paid in a timely fashion. Another thing that we like to see, and we need it for programs, is your, like Robin said, your treated cattle sorted off on the truck. When they come into the feed yard, we will pen them separate until they go through the chute, and that way we can reconcile the treated EIDs to the list that you also provide. And that's just reassurance so that none of the animals slip through the cracks. So this slide shows a little bit of our touch points, or our data gathering points. If you're delivering cattle into the feed yard, you can see all these arrivals, and it's kind of a gold or yellowish look. So each of them, the arrivals and then the stars, are points in time in their life that we actually will run them through the chute. We're going to weigh them, scan their EID, gather other data, and any given calf will go through between 2 to 3 and sometimes even 4 times through the chute. Each time through the chute, we're gathering more data and compiling it, producing a database of your cattle specific in our feed yards. So this here is an example of an arrival work order. So this would be when you ship them to us. This is the work order that we set up at the feed yard the first time through the chute. So it's a really busy slide and a busy program. I'll draw your attention down here to this circle. So here we're actually plugging in source code for each of your individual ranches, and then that gets tied to all the animals that are processed into this work order. We're gathering all of the products that we are giving at the feed yard. They're tracking lot number, we're tracking weights. We will record individual weights per animal through the chute, and we can look at that and analyze individual animal performance along the way. So after that, at about 75 days, we are doing a health cutoff report. And the reason at 75 days is it's a way, anything 75 days on feed and prior, there's a good chance if we've had health issues, it might be something we can influence on the ranch side of things. After the 75 days, it is probably something that is a feed yard management deal that we got to look at. little bit about this report. So your ranch data will be in the orange here on the left, and your summary totals will be at the top. They're bolded a little bit. So this specific ranch, we're looking at 0.64% death loss, and then the breakout of the individual causes. And then down on the bottom here, 5.89% of treated cattle, which some of those were an undifferentiated fever, which would be the pen riders were out riding, noticed the animal was sick, they brought them into the chute, they temp them, and the undifferentiated fever would be 105 degrees and higher. And then the no fever, this bottom category, would be below that. And both animals are likely to get antibiotic to solve their issue. The arrival fever, that is actually tracked when we receive the animals in that process. We are temping every animal and tracking that. And what that actually can give us is a tool. If we have a group of calves that say there's 20% arrival fevers, it's going to tell us at the feed yard and our pen riders that we're really going to need to watch, because there's a good chance that we're going to have more issues coming with that group of cattle down the line. Over here on the right, this is our Wulf cattle database. So this would be the contemporary group of cattle that is in our different feed yards. And this would be the average of the health data for this year at that 75 days also. So you're able to kind of compare with the other groups of cattle of, are you better, or is there things we need to look at and have some discussions? And any of this is all, we're more than happy to sit down and go through individual ranches data as needed if you got questions. So moving on to more around that 150 days on feed in the feed yard. This is actually called a rehandle work order. And so what we'll do here is we will rerun them animals through the chute, and down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see that circle. So in there, when the cattle go through the chute, we're actually going to sort them into marketing groups. You're going to have your light group, your medium group, and your heavy group. And how this program does it is there's an algorithm in that works behind the scenes. You tell it you're going to have 900 head that they're going to go through the chute. This is what you're projecting the average to be. And first animal through the chute, it starts deciding which group it's going to be in. And as time goes, it will keep adjusting the weight brackets so that you end up with 3 equal groups, so that you have penfuls, and you can also mark it accordingly when they're ready to ship, so that they're nice even for the end consumer. In this work order, we're also tracking the vaccines, porons, etc., that the animal gets. The program will keep track of, so if there's 3 pens in this lot, it actually keeps track of what pen those animals should go in. Should an animal get out, the guys can take it back to the chute, scan it, and know exactly where it needs to be. So after gathering all of that data, it actually comes into a marketing plan spreadsheet. And this is the help of the feedlot health team, and then also Tammy Mickelson and our feedlot crews work on this sheet for scheduling fat cattle. You can see over here on the left, we're from multiple different groups of cattle and sources and feed yards. And so what we use this, we will project out weight gain, and it gives us an approximate marketing week. And obviously here you can see there's a lot of cattle that are ready to go the 18th of April, or that week. Obviously, we're not going to be able to ship all of them that week. So then Tammy will work with the feed yards and make sure that we're getting them. If something is really big, need to go a little sooner, or if they can wait a little bit. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Nate.
Thank you, Lucas. And Robin will be next here, and she's going to cover. So we've had the cattle through the kind of the feeding phase, and now what do we do as they're getting ready to go on to Tyson? I also forgot to mention, if you have questions as we're going, Lucas just covered a whole bunch of stuff. Feel free to ask them as we go. That way, if we're on the slide, or we can cover it while it's up versus going back through. But I would say another thing, this system and how, what we're trying to do is get those cattle to their genetic, so that they reach their genetic potential, but yet we're not inefficient on the finishing phase. And like Lucas said, they don't all get to go on the day the spreadsheet prints them out, but before we had this, it was kind of whichever feed yard manager or whoever was the best arguer got their cattle harvested first. Now Tammy referees that process, and there, we'll go through and say, hey, this lot number is, XYZ Ranch. It's a front end set of steers, April 18th, but they'll be fine going to May 1st. But make sure you get these light steers. They're, more Angus influenced. Let's roll them up to April 18th. So we do still have a little bit of, manual tweaking going on there, but this is how we essentially hone in our shipping schedules to target our grids and also keep those outweights very consistent when you're talking about multiple feed yards and multiple areas, kind of all flowing that information together. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Robert.
All right, once the cattle get scheduled, they come back onto my plate, and along with Tammy, we pull the information that was, all the treatment information that was put into the IFHMS program, the Feedlot Health Program, and we pull manifests, and we will separate out the cattle that were, for the Verified Natural Program, we'll separate, Verified Natural Gap, we'll separate out the cattle that were treated, and then look up into the IMI lookup and make sure that they are still verified for the programs that we plan on shipping for, and we request our load shipment certificates and our right to ships. And we request those, we turn in all that information. When we get that back, that shipping certificate has each of the animals in that lot tied out with the ranch that they came from. We commingle our lots, so some of them have a lot of different ranchers in them, or ranchers' calves in them. And along with the birth dates and then what programs they qualify for. We then take the fallout list from those in the feedlot. The guys at the feedlot have to be a very detail-oriented crew that go out and sort out and get out the tags that we need out of there. And then also they fill out the paperwork and send it with the truck, with the head counts, and make sure that everything is correct, got the correct animals on there. And send that with the trucks as well as email it to the plant. Then once we get the cattle harvested, we get back carcass data from the plant. We get it back in Excel format and by EID. And then with the help of Feedlot Health, we analyze that data and we send it out to you guys. We analyze it quarterly. We only send it out yearly. So if you are wanting to get your data more often, or you're wondering, you think you get your report and you see that you should have more head on there, you can check with me. I can look to see if you had any more through the last quarter that we pulled. I'll go over this report some. So we have now been doing it in this same format for, I don't know, what is it, five years now? So this format, I have 5 years worth. We can go back pretty easily. Even prior to that, we can go back and this might not look quite like this. Might look a little bit more archaic, I guess. So, oops, push the one, sorry. All right, so right here, we break it out into both steers and heifers, and then it's broke out into the programs. Natural will include your Verified Natural and your Verified Natural Gap, and then the NHTC cattle. So if you look here, it has your head counts right here, and then your quality grade, yield grade, ribeye area, and the ribeye area to hot carcass weight ratio. For quality grades, we target 90% choice and higher, with 20% of those being prime. And then meanwhile, maintaining a yield grade 3 or higher and minimizing those 4s and 5s is optimal. We have the ribeye area here. Ribeye area can or is determined by genetics and age. And so we have this ribeye area to hot carcass weight ratio in here to help standardize that depending on if those cattle were taken to a heavier endpoint or not. We have all this data by individual. So if you ever want your individual data, we send out just the summaries. But if you ever want your individual data, contact me or one of the team members. We can get it for you, send it over. We can send it to you in Excel so you can dig through it more if you would like. Any questions?
Okay. So I'll take that pointer, please. So yeah, as we've don't want to get into Casey's information here, but as we do keep focusing on it, like Robin said, we're trying to move the bar higher in our entire genetic program on the grade side, but yet trying extremely hard to not give up any of the efficiency in the feed yard, you know, from the muscling, dressing percentage, feed conversion standpoint. And Casey's going to talk here a little bit more on. So this information Lucas shared with you, Robin shared with you, this is the information we're giving you all as commercial ranchers on the cattle that you're sending to us. Now what we're going to go through briefly here is what we're doing on our side to keep making better genetics. And he'll walk through how we use the dairy beef cattle, what we call beef builders that are out of our own dairies, how we utilize those to get a bunch of sire progeny. So I'm going to let Casey walk through that, but that is a really big deal. And if you think about it, we're trying to model how pork and poultry and other proteins have been able to really move the needle in a way that does not cost a bunch of money by DNA testing commercial cattle with unknown sires, because all these dairy cattle have an AI sire. The beef cattle coming out of our dairies are all AI bred. We're able to capture a lot of information, and Casey's going to share more on that.
Yeah, so first off, I just wanted to say, I talk about genetics with the producers every day in some form or fashion in little bits and pieces, and then I get 10 minutes to put it all together and tell you all the things we're doing, and I worry that I'm going to forget something here or leave something out. But afterwards, I'm going to say, well, that was really important, and I didn't get that in there, But so as seed stock producers, we're doing the normal things that most people do. We're taking weights, we're taking at birth and weaning and yearling, and we're constantly measuring the cattle and looking at the cattle and evaluating the cattle, and we do carcass ultrasounds for ribeye and for marbling, and so we do all of that stuff. We've started doing genomically enhanced EPDs, which give us the utmost in accuracies. I mean, we do the genomic enhancement. It's like these bulls having 20 calves before and adding them onto their EPDs before they ever even get out and breed. But so then I wanted to come to this and say what makes our genetics special. I guess I struggled with how to say that, but I just want to come around and say it. This is the stuff that makes our genetics special. So for sire data, we have 450 sires in our progeny database that, as Nate alluded to, we've used in our breeding and feeding program to breed dairy cattle. So we collect information right from birth to harvest on those. So calving need information, performance information, and carcass information. We continually keep using that information to put back into our seed stock. We can add a lot because there's so many numbers. It's so much easier to get to, and they're all individually identified, versus where we're doing more of a mass. When we sell you guys bulls, we do more of a mass analysis, but this is one-on-one, so we can specifically build from the very best genetics. You find the best genetics for health, performance, carcass traits, the whole thing. The other thing we do is our Grow Safe unit, which we use to get feed efficiency. We've tested over 3,400 bulls here, and that's growing continually. We test 500 to 600 bulls a year, probably. In this day and age, and the high cost of feed, the feed efficiency gets very important. It should have been very important all along, but at this point, it's even more important. We continually move the needle on that. We're getting lower feed to gain and coupling that with higher average daily gain, which makes very much more productive, profitable cattle. Progeny, we have over 120,000 carcass evaluations that have gone into now and get contributed to the carcass EPDs that go onto our cattle. That is huge in helping to develop new genetics and knowing what genetics we need to go to. That's unequaled in the industry. We're ready to bypass all the other breeds by building additional carcass information. I just wanted to put this up because the one trait that I like to talk about is marbling. I mean, I know the Limousin breed is known for its muscle, so we always want to maintain muscle. I like this specific slide. It's an industry-wide type slide. It shows the percent of fed cattle grading from 2000 to 2020. You can see right about 2015 how the thing shifted. The blue line is prime and upper two-thirds choice, and the red line is select. We had a major shift in the industry right about that time, and increased demand for marbling and higher quality beef. So the EPDs on our cattle versus the Limousin herd book, you can see that the Limousin cattle as a whole have had an incline for marbling EPD since from 2003 to 2021. The gold line is our line. So even though the breed has been climbing, we're that much above the average. It's tailed off a little bit here in the last year or so because they changed the EPD system. But otherwise, we're still above the database. What's interesting about that is I went back to 2016, and the bulls that we sold in the sale in 2016 had an average ribeye of 15.9. This year, the bulls selling at an average ribeye of 17.34. So we've increased the marbling, but we've also increased our ribeye size. So we use this information to make our cow matings. I work with the guys here at the ranch, Gabriel and the crew. We get the cow matings together, pick the sires that we're going to use to make bulls both for the ranchers and to go back into the dairy system, the AI cows, to make the utmost product for the feedlots. We keep adding that genetic data to make a better product for our ranchers to use and to make better, more efficient genetics for the industry.
So to kind of tie things together, and then we can take questions. Whether it's you're a commercial producer here working with us and selling cattle to us that we're running through the various value-added programs, or the other half of our cattle feeding segment and beef segment here, we're feeding a lot of the beef cross calves, our beef pillar calves coming out of our dairies. They both start with genetics, and they both kind of end with genetics, and they also kind of inform each other as we go. So I guess it's our, as Casey stated, one of the objectives here today was to also just, it's a side of the business we don't always see. It may feel like they're very opposite in nature, but at the end of the day, the information we're gathering on that system should and is benefiting, our entire bull production, and then those bulls that you all get as commercial producers. It should distinguish what we're doing, kind of separate us. As Casey said, this information that's being captured is not. There's a lot of data and EPD analysis and indexes created through the industry, but there's a lot of people on our team, Casey, Tammy, Lauren, several team members that work in our dairy segment, several people at Feedlot Health that help us put all this together. But this has not been easy. I think it started over 5 years ago, but we're really starting to see the benefits of this in our genetic progress, informing the EPDs that are being calculated on these cattle, and hopefully we kind of get the snowball effect here, because these numbers, as Casey alluded to, continue to grow. I think right now that number would be nearly double that as far as what has been either AI bred or in the pipeline to turn into carcass progeny. So we hope to keep adding to this, and like I said, it's a unique thing that we think we can offer to you all as commercial producers as well. Any questions or comments as we kind of wrap up here? Thanks for sitting through this. I didn't see anybody fall asleep, so it must have been all right.